And the first time I really researched leadership in itself with the purpose of figuring out what is going on with leadership was 2013 as I was wrapping up my bachelor's degree. Up until that point, even though I was in college and even though I was developing the illusion of competence, I was operating off the framework that I knew leadership was broken. But up until 2013, I really didn't know how or why. I just knew through all my experience that every indication was something was wrong. So in 2013, I started looking at what was wrong. I was in one of my last classes for my bachelor's degree. It was a self-study class, 10 weeks long, pick a subject. I chose what's wrong with leadership. That was my subject to study for 10 weeks. So the first thing I did was, when I looked at studying leadership, was who's popular in leadership, right? That's where I'm going to start with, is if you Google leadership, what comes up? So one of the first things that comes up is Kenneth Blanchard. Kenneth Blanchard is a very, very big name, very, very known in leadership circles. He's done a lot of things in leadership, situational leadership 2, the 1 Minute Manager, released tons of books, has done a lot for leadership. So my thought was, all right, well, let's look into this guy and see how he got to where he was at in leadership. So the first thing I looked at was the 1 Minute Manager. So I looked at, where did the 1 Minute Manager come from? And what I learned is that Kenneth Blanchard went to a cocktail party in 1982, and he met a guy there named Spencer Johnson. And as I said, Kenneth Blanchard was already known for his business teachings, for his leadership teachings. Well, Spencer Johnson was also a known author. But Spencer Johnson is known for writing children's books. That's what he did at the time, was he wrote children's books. And what's very interesting about Spencer Johnson and Kenneth Blanchard is that Spencer Johnson was already working on a book on the night that he met Kenneth Blanchard. And the name of that book was The 1 Minute Parent. So the first thing I find when I'm trying to figure out what was wrong with leadership is that one of the most popular books ever written about leadership looks like it actually could have been written as a children's book. So as maybe that doesn't bother you when it comes to your leadership. But I'm not done when it comes to Kenneth Blanchard and the 1 Minute Manager. He was sued in the early 2000s by a guy named Carlyle. Now, he worked with Carlyle in 1976. They were colleagues together, and Carlyle wrote an essay called McGregor. And if you look at McGregor, the first 50 pages of the 1 Minute Manager are almost a carbon copy of the entirety of McGregor. So Carlyle sued for plagiarism. You plagiarized that idea from me. Now, interestingly, Kenneth Blanchard didn't deny taking ideas from McGregor and putting them in the 1 Minute Manager. Instead, what Kenneth Blanchard said was, I contributed so much to McGregor with Carlyle that I had every right to use McGregor in the context of the 1 Minute Manager. And Carlyle vehemently disagrees with this assessment. Carlyle says this was my idea. That was literally the first thing that I look at in leadership when I'm looking at why leadership is broken. The first thing I look at is Kenneth Blanchard. And keep in mind, I'm already jaded. At this point, I've long since thought that leadership is broken. And then finding this history of the 1 Minute Manager does nothing to alleviate that thought that something is wrong with leadership.